I am going to share my screen. Okay, so everybody should be able to see that now. Right, so welcome everybody. So I'm Nolene Hammond-Jones. I'm the International Careers Manager. I am based in Lancaster University Management School, but my role is quite varied. I've worked at University of Manchester for about 10 years. I've worked at Durham University and I've worked in the private sector as well. So my role is looking after the employability of our international students. That means helping our international students with their careers and their career aspirations. In addition to that, I also work with all of our international employers who are interested in hiring students either back to their home country or international students to work in a third country. Or I work also with UK employers about understanding the value of hiring international talent and what diversity brings to the workplace and helping them to understand the different visa immigration routes as well. So today we're going to focus on the employment landscape for research-related careers. So the focus of this session is going to be on careers related not in research, not in academia, but what you can do in terms of a variety of careers using those research skills. There will be a slightly interactive element to this, which I will ask you to either take a screenshot or a photograph of your screen when I share the values section. And I'm just going to have you do a quick exercise. So these documents also that I'll be referencing today, I will send to Chris, and Chris will disseminate to the group as well, so you can use them for afterwards. So the employability landscape. I just want to say hello to everybody. I'm also not British, I'm Irish. I'm always, is Falcha in there? Oh, Diodit is in there. So yeah, welcome everybody to the session today. Just to share with you, firstly, what are companies looking for? And we see a lot of job adverts out there at the minute, and they tend to be quite generic, but top of their list is what I've highlighted there in red as leadership and teamwork skills, research skills, curious questioning, critical thinking skills, problem solving abilities. What the pandemic has shown to a lot of organizations is that they really need individuals who can, what we refer to as pivot or react quickly to changing situations, who can come up with solutions to problems, including how can we conduct our business in a different format if we can't all go into the office? How can we continue to be profitable? How can we communicate effectively as a team? How can we work productively as a group or as an individual to benefit the organization? And lots of other more complicated activities that the organization will need, but they are looking for individuals who have a variety of skills, but those tend to be the skills that I've highlighted in red at the top of their agenda, because they want individuals to also as well be keen to learn, and that comes in with the research skills. They're looking for people who want to continue to develop, that aren't just done with their education, who may take professional courses, professional qualifications, annual training sessions, so that they're up to date on the latest innovations in their industry. So they're looking for keen self-development individuals. And in terms of preparing for your career, and you'll all be familiar with this from doing research, is that you need to have an action plan. And to have an action plan, to understand how to get where you need to go, you need to have some fundamental elements as part of that. And those are having that goal, being able to plan, take action. So researching the organization or the sector that you're interested in. What sort of person works there? Who do you know? Do you have connections in those industries, whether it be alumni, whether the companies come on campus to do an event, whether they're running events online? Who works there? What are they like? How do they display themselves? And how do your skills fit in? How can you be useful to the organization? And research is the biggest thing that you will need to do with your career. You need to, and I say it in presentations all the time, research, research, research. People research their next holiday more than they do their career. And understanding what your options are informs you, but also empowers you to make those informed decisions. So the more you know about an organization, its innovations, its partnerships, its clients, its culture, how it operates, really helps to make a decision for you as an individual about if this is a good fit. Because it's not all about you proving yourself worthy of an organization. They also need to prove themselves worthy of you. Are they a good fit for you? It's a two-way process. Working somewhere that makes you miserable will badly affect you. So it's very important to understand who you want to work for. So look at things like their website, their social media channels, look at their services, their team, look on LinkedIn, who works there, and use sites like Prospects to look at the kinds of skills that are relevant to those jobs. So Prospects have a breakdown of different jobs by job title that you can look up and see what does that entail? What does that include? What does a day-to-day in that job look like? And talk to people from business. We have many opportunities, and I'll be sharing an email later today with more events and more vacancies. And those events will enable you to network with potential employers. For instance, we have a company running online assessment centers tomorrow. So you can join that session and understand how a company would run an assessment center. Most big companies use assessment centers in their recruitment process because it helps them to determine who's a good fit for their organization. And if you've never been through an assessment center, whether online or in person, having access to these practice sessions can be very, very useful so that you know what to expect. You know how these events are formatted, but also what's expected from you as a participant. Online job fairs. So we have the Asia Careers Insight series happening in March, which is in partnership with 20 other universities across the UK. We're working with a large number of employers from across Asia and Southeast Asia to recruit all numbers of students from all faculties and all backgrounds. So that event is happening and you can join from anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in BJTU, if you're in Sunway, if you're in Ghana, if you're in Leipzig, you can join online. It's running from the 7th of March, 8th, 9th, and 10th of March. And all of that information is going to be included in the newsletters that I send to you. So do keep an eye on those. But why is it important to plan? And this is why. It's competitive. It is so competitive out there. And the more you know, the more your opportunities are maximized because you are informing yourself, which helps with your applications, what helps with your CV, which helps with your interviews, which helps with your assessment centers. And it's very important to take that time to do that research so that you can effectively apply. I have had students come to me saying they've applied for 100 roles. And that to me is a waste of time because it's quality over quantity. If you invest the time in the research and the time in your application, you're going to increase your chances of success. If you send a generic CV to a qualified recruiter whose career is recruitment, they are trained and they are professionals in what they do. They can spot somebody who hasn't spent the time researching the organization. The number one feedback we get from employers all over the world, China, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, Europe, America, Canada. When I talk to employers, and I talk to them pretty much every day, I get feedback that our students just don't have the commercial awareness that they want. And commercial awareness just means knowing who the organization is and what they do. If you don't have, and you've not invested that time in researching the organization, they know. And they're not going to waste their time hiring somebody who hasn't invested in them. They need to know that you're invested. They need to know that you're a good investment for them, because it costs them a lot of money to recruit. So they need you to have spent that time knowing who they are, what they do, who their customers are, who their competition is, so that when they hire you, they know you're going to be a valued asset to the organization. So it's important to plan in order to give you direction and focus, informs your decision making, but also in order to have a plan, you need to have the knowledge, the self-awareness, personal development, and a robust action plan. So it's important for you to have these elements. And I know I am talking to the people who specialize in research, but to understand and format, am I going to have a plan A or a plan B or a plan C or a plan D? You need to do the research. It is so important to know what your options are. If plan A is to get a job in the UK, great. What is your fallback plan B? If your plan B is to get a job in Netherlands, great. What's your fallback plan C? So these are things that you need to think about. It's not just about having a very narrowed focus, because that can also harm your employability. It's about having that subsequent set of plans, so that eventually you will get your plan A, but that might be after some time in plan B, plan C, and then getting your plan A. So knowledge helps you to understand your options. It empowers you to have conversations with employers or alumni, or somebody in your network about what you want to do. Most of the time, employers want to know, what are your motivations? Why do you want to work for us? And doing the research helps you to formulate that conversation. And it also helps you to discover new opportunities. So you might be going into this thinking, I want a career as a data analyst or a data scientist. But actually, by doing the research of the different organizations and the different roles that are out there, you might find something completely different that you didn't know existed. And this informs your decision making. This helps you to realize, what have I got out there in terms of my options? And it helps you as well to multitask and prioritize. Where are you going to put your efforts in, and maximizes your competitiveness. So when we say research, what can you do with your degree? So start with your degree. What are the jobs out there that are linked to your degree? But also, what are the skills employers are looking for? How can you maximize your career prospects, and what sector do you want to work in? And it's important to look at as well, who are the employers? And doing this research can help, again, for you to put the foundations in for the action plan. And where you'll find the answers to these questions are the career service, accessing your career service, making an appointment, making sure that you've got a good, strong, robust job search strategy in place. Speaking to alumni, connecting with them on LinkedIn. And I know for those of you in China, LinkedIn do have a China option now. So LinkedIn have a Chinese platform where you can connect with alumni in China, which is going to be fantastic. You've also got online, so Google, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, GradLink, Student Circus prospects. For those of you in China, you have Lockin, Xiaopin, 51 Job. So there's lots of different places that you can look in order to help you to research what is out there in the market right now. And attending employer events and fairs, even if you feel like, oh, they're not a good employer for me, or I don't know who they are, approach them and have a conversation. Understand who these organizations are, because they may well be doing something you don't know. For instance, there's a company called Crystal Group. And Crystal Group International operates in China, Vietnam, and Cambodia. And does anybody know, or has anybody heard of Crystal Group? If you just want to put in the chat area.
No, I haven't.
Right. So Crystal Group, they produce all the garments for Levi's. So a lot of these companies who don't have the big names or the brand names that we know are behind the brand names that we know. So doing the research can really help you to understand that, but also talking to your family and friends and academics. But you really don't understand how broad your network is until you start having conversations. And obviously we talked about company websites and recruitment websites. So just to give you some facts and figures for those of you interested in academia. So in academia, the number of academic staff in the higher education sector did increase by 4% based on figures. We only have figures going back to 2020 at the moment. So HESA collect our graduate destination data. So they collect all the data for UK higher education institutions where our graduates go in terms of careers, whether it's careers, further study. And based on their figures of academic staff, they're always 2 years behind. We have an increase of 4%, which is up on last year's figures. Full-time contracts are up by 2% and part-time contracts are up by 9%. And the number of academic staff with UK and non-EU nationality, so international, have increased, but the number of EU nationals has decreased. And we can put that down to a number of sources. But understand as well, a career in academia is not easy. Your academics will attest to this. And a lot of them are contracts, which can impact things like buying houses, depending on where you are in the world. And it does differ. So again, researching your local market, researching how to get an academic career in your market is also important. But know that those numbers are increasing and the number of institutions worldwide is also increasing. But research careers outside of academia, based again on HESA's data, shows that 80 to 90% of those with research or PhDs develop their careers outside of academia. So they go into industry. And they use those skills to work across most of the employment sectors, including setting up their own businesses. And we find that most careers, if not all, value research skills as a fundamental element to the business. And some of the most in-demand jobs have been identified as skills shortages require research and data analysis skills. So if you look at the skills shortage list for the UK on the government website, you will see that data analytics, business analytics, data scientists are some of the roles listed on there as skills shortages. Because again, with the pandemic, it has shown how much employers need this information. And so the demand for those skills has massively increased over the last couple of years. And again, just to show you which sectors research careers go into, it shows you that one of the biggest sectors is life sciences and pharmaceutical, followed by other. Now, that other could be setting up their own businesses. It could be working for the family business. And then you can see that public administration, including research policy, so think tanks, working for government departments, is followed quickly by manufacturing and aspects of manufacturing development. And then we have quite healthy numbers in charity, but also consulting. And then we have education, which can be, but not always, but can be a destination for those who have some aspirations to work in academia. But I wanted to share with you 11 jobs, just picking out 11, that involve research and analysis. And I'm not going to read out all of the additional information that I've put with them, but you can look these up online. So market research analyst, a forensic scientist, archaeologist, business analyst, which is, again, one of the skill shortages in many countries. And that could be working for pretty much any company in any sector. They all require business analysts. Biologist, scientist, psychologist, pharmacologist, economists as well is another skill shortage area. Actuary is a massive skill shortage area for those of you who are really, really good at maths, and historian. So you'll see that there are a number of different fields, and this is just a snapshot. This is not all the jobs that are out there, but it gives you an idea of the variety of sectors that are covered simply by picking 11 jobs. But to move on from that, these are the other areas as well that you can look at in terms of alternative jobs. So we have research management, university e-learning officer. So there are what we call professional staff roles or professional services staff who are non-academics but work in a capacity with the academics to help in terms of e-learning, research, grants, things like that. So then you've got teaching, civil servant, local government, environmental consultant, publishing, writer, broadcast journalist, social media manager, law. So you'll see, bear with me a second, that again, there are so many different roles out there that demand those research skills. So for instance, my role, I'm an international careers manager, and a huge proportion of my role is business development, which involves researching various labor markets around the world, understanding who are the leading sectors, who are the leading employers in those sectors, where have our graduates gone, looking at data from various different government bodies, including the Office for National Statistics, and HESA, to see where do our graduates go to inform my business development plan. Who am I going to target? Who am I going to contact? Do we have alumni in those organizations I can reach out to? And my background is I started my career as a nurse. I then went on to do a degree in marketing, which a lot of marketing is research. And then I did my master's in history. So I have a history master's, which again involved a lot of research. I spent an entire summer in a library. And with that as well, I have my professional qualifications, which again involve a lot of research. So I have a love for higher education and I have a love for learning, but I don't necessarily want to be an academic. But part of my role is teaching. So I do, through my career, get those elements that energize me, but I'm not necessarily an academic. So it's important again to research those careers. So starting with self-awareness, which is the next step after the whole research piece, is the ability to monitor our inner and external world. So how do we think? How do we behave? How do we impact others? And understanding internal experiences and their impact on the experience of others, and having an understanding of what energizes you and what you find difficult. And by energizes you, have a think about an experience where an activity, could be an event that you organized. What elements of that activity energized you, made you excited, you had lots of motivation to do? And then what elements do you find difficult? And those kinds of that information helps to inform your career decision making, because you want more of what energizes you. If you have a career that mostly has, because it's always going to have something you don't like, it's just a given. You're never going to get that unicorn job that has absolutely, I mean, some people do, very few, but that absolutely has everything you love. There will always be an element in that role that you just hate doing, or it's going to be that job you leave till the last thing on a Friday because you cannot motivate yourself to do it. So it's important to know that the job going forward has most of what energizes you, because if you're energized and you're motivated, you're going to be more successful, because that's something you're going to strive to keep achieving and being better. And it's so important to reflect on your experience and values and skills in order to give yourself the best advantage in the competitive marketplace that it is. And it's also an uncertain marketplace at the moment. We know what's going on in the world. It's a very difficult place right now in a lot of places. So you need to have that understanding of who you are, what you enjoy, and what you need to work on to give yourself that best advantage. So be open to feedback. How do you feel when you're given critical feedback? How do you respond when somebody says, that was great, but how does that make you feel? And how do you use that information going forward? And I know it can be really difficult receiving feedback, but try not to take it personally. Try to take it as a, I suppose, in a way that doesn't upset you in a way that you can use that. So as long as it's given in a constructive way, non-constructive feedback, by all means, do not take on board, but constructive feedback, take on board. Listen to what people have to say. My motto is every day is a school day. I am an expert in what I do. There's probably around 5 people in the UK that do what I do for the period of time that I've done this. And we all know each other and we work very well together. But I have to learn things every day. The world is constantly changing. Students' expectations are changing. Employers' expectations are changing. Different markets are changing. And I have to be ready. But also, as well, the world in general is changing. How people want to be communicated with is changing. So I need to understand that every day is a school day. And if I get something wrong, I'm accountable for that. But I'm happy for people to feed back to me and let me know what I need to do. So be open to feedback. That's how you're going to develop. That's how you're going to be a leader in what you do. That's how you're going to be successful. But also understand your values and how these impact your careers. Your value sets are so important. And the reason I say this is because if you get a job in a company and their values don't align with your personal values, it is going to be really difficult to be a representative of that organization. You need to understand that wherever you go in a work capacity, you are the face of that organization. Is that something you're happy to be? Does that work culture, that leadership style, that organizational reputation align with who you are as a person? And some people can happily function with a company where the values don't align, but the majority of us need those values to align. And most companies will identify their values openly on their website. So you can find out what their values are as an organization. But what you'll find in truth is that they don't always conduct themselves in line with their values. So talking to people in organizations is the best way forward, because they will tell you exactly what the company values are and where the company priorities are. And articulate your strengths, be able to talk about your strengths. And that's where this conference comes in that you have been a member of, and being able to articulate to an employer the skills that you used, the audience that you presented to, the impact that this conference has had on your career prospects, the impact it's had on your aspirations, and being able to reflect it in your CV and your applications as a job. You took part in this conference. You have the time period that you took part, the skills, worked as part of a team, or you worked on your own to strict deadlines, produced information, presented information to a panel of experts or an individual or an alumni. Understand, and if you are struggling to understand how to present this information, we can help you in the career service to do that on your CV in a way that employers will value. Because remember, not all employers have gone to university either. Many employers have worked their way through an organization. So sometimes we have to look at the language we're using in our CVs to make it in a way that employers will understand. So using terminology that's not academic, but that it's more industry related. So instead of saying students, we might say clients. So again, using language that is more industry based. I'm identifying weaknesses and how to develop them. Now, I'm not saying tell employers what your weaknesses are. We do not give them a reason not to hire you, but you need to know what your weaknesses are so that you can work on them and develop them. Or if it's an absolute not going to happen weakness, you're never going to address it because it's something you're just not interested in, then looking for careers that do not have that as an element to the work that you will be doing. And what activities energize you? What do you really love to do? Where do you, what activity, event, or something that you've done extracurricular have you been involved in that has really energized you? And consider what activities demotivate you. It's very important. And how do you communicate with others? Are you a listener? Are you a talker? Are you both? What is your communication style? So these are the values, and I'd like you to either take a screenshot, or if you can, just take a photo with your phone. it's only going to be a really, really quick activity. And I'm going to ask you to do something in a moment. So if you could just put in the chat that you have got that screen. And I'm going to do a really, really quick activity. Has everybody got that? Yeah? Okay. So the activity, I'm going to change screens now. So you'll need that in front of you, okay? So this is I'm going to send the value sheet out to you as well via Chris, so don't worry. So you have 30 seconds to cross off 5 values on that list that you that are least important to you. So 5 values that are least important to you. 30 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you have another 30 seconds to cross off 5 more. Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And 20 seconds to cross off 3 more. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And another 20 seconds to cross off 3 more. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's it. So I'm going to stop it there. And I am going to stop sharing for a second because I would like to hear from you how you found that quick activity. You can either type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. Did you find that very tricky? Yes, none are bad. None of the values are bad. It's a tricky one. And then when you're put under time pressure, it's even worse. Did anybody end up with 3 values that you were a little bit shocked? Or you weren't expecting? Yeah, it was hard. It's hard to cancel out the ones that don't, that you're thinking, but they are important to me, but is it the most important? And I think by having those top 3 values that are left, that helps you again to inform your decision making. I'm not saying the other values are not important. Of course they're important. But they're possibly not the ones that are the most important to you. So going forward, the 3 that are left, you've decided are the most important values. And those are the kinds of values you want to find in an organization you want to work for, whether that be a higher education institution or a private sector employer. So yeah, very tricky. None left I wasn't expecting, but crossed off ones I was surprised to cross off. Yeah, and that tends to be the case. So what I'll do is I'll send this value sheet to Chris, who can circulate to you afterwards, and you can have a copy of it. But it helps, as I said, to make that decision. Who are you going to apply to, and do they reflect your values that you've deemed most important? And I think when we're put under the time frames like that, it can be a little bit shocking for some of us. So yeah, think about, and this is just for you, think about, how do you feel about the values you've ended up with? Were they expected or did they surprise you? And how do these values show themselves in your everyday life? You know, do you have these values in your activities, your hobbies, your extracurricular work, your academic work, home? And what actions do you already take to live by these values? And what would you like to take to live by them? So have a think about that as well going forward. So moving on to personal development. Personal development is key to the progress in your career and becoming a confident professional and lifelong learner. And I talked earlier about companies really valuing those who are lifelong learners. And it is important to be a lifelong learner now, especially in most careers. If you go into software development, that's ever changing on a weekly, daily basis. So you need to be constantly learning. Developing clear career goals and addressing skills gaps, improving your career prospects through this lifelong learning, building on your strengths, because as much as it's a strength now, it can be a bigger, better strength down the road, depending on what it is that you want to develop. Manage and develop those weaknesses. I've put manage in there as well because not all weaknesses can be addressed. So, you know, manage the ones that you can't and develop the ones that you can. Understanding what your drive and motivation is. Developing resilience, because it can be particularly difficult when you're receiving any kind of rejection, and developing that resilience by shifting focus from I've been rejected from another job to, okay, I didn't get this, but let me have the feedback. What feedback can I get? Not all employers will give you feedback depending on the volume of applications they've had, but where you can get feedback, use that to inform your applications going forward. And if you find that you're continually being rejected at the same stage in a recruitment process, you need to speak to your career service and get help, because it could be something really simple that you're just not quite doing right on your applications that they can help you with. And having focus, understanding what it is that you want to do. And that comes through the research that we mentioned earlier. So, action plan. What is an action plan? And oh, I have a self-development questionnaire that I will send to Chris to disseminate, so you can answer some questions and really help you to figure out where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. It's a very simple 2-page, 3-page, I think it's 2-page, 2-page questionnaire that you can fill out, and it will help you with your action planning. So an action plan is a list of tasks and resources needed to complete a project or achieve a goal. I'm sure you're all very, very familiar with an action plan, but this also relates to your career. And having those achievable goals keeps you motivated and energized. And by achievable, when I'm sitting down with students and you know, we talk about all the things they need to do. We break it down and we go, okay, so of all the things that you need to do, which can feel very overwhelming, what do we need to do by the end of this week? What we need to do by the end of this week is to create a LinkedIn profile. You don't have to populate it, just get your photo, have the LinkedIn profile, and then just start familiarizing yourself with the platform and how it works. That's all you got to do this week. Next week, we're going to start to populate your LinkedIn profile. We're going to look at what's on your CV and develop that further. And then the week after, we're going to start looking at alumni on LinkedIn and developing ideas of how we can engage with those alumni. So you take it step by step, and actually you achieve quite a lot. And sometimes when you get a handle on something, you can start to feel more empowered to move your action plan on a bit quicker. But we take it in bite-sized approaches at first so as not to feel overwhelmed. But your career is a lifelong project, and this is where you're all at an advantage because you know how to conduct a project. And developing an action plan clarifies the goals to be achieved. It helps you to map out the help and support you need. It also helps you to set timelines and milestones to achieve your goals by, but also helps you to track your progress. So where are the stumbling blocks? Where are the barriers? What is the feedback you're getting? How do you assimilate that information? And understanding that will help you get through the recruitment process. So developing a career plan, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, is absolutely essential to get to that success. That career plan informs your CV and covering letter, helps you to write those documents as well as populating your LinkedIn. It helps you then to work through the online tests and online application forms that employers use, the various different formats of interviews, which can lead to an offer of a role. But it is so important to get the right support to set the goals in order to make the progress and improve your self-confidence. So I know I've given you a lot of information. Thank you very much for listening. And I am happy to take any questions if anybody has any questions. And I've stopped the recording as well.